Welcome to another edition of SVSU Red Alert, your weekly update on Saginaw Valley State University athletics. I'm your host, JJ Boehm. The SVSU football team dropped another one at home to Tiffin and now has to get ready to make the long road trip to Michigan Tech. We'll talk to head coach Jim Collins and find out what his team needs to do to right the ship, and we'll also get an update on the offensive backfield from running backs coach Andre Griffin. That's all ahead on this edition of SVSU Red Alert. Welcome back to SVSU Red Alert. I'm JJ Boehm, joined by SVSU head football coach Jim Collins. And Coach, I guess I'll start by saying, if you'd have told me before the game against Tiffin that SVSU would rush for 190 yards and have no turnovers, I would have liked SVSU's chances a whole heck of a lot, but it didn't turn out that way in a 28-17 loss.
Well, that's a great point, JJ. I mean, I thought we ran the ball effectively at times, but other times not as well as we wanted to. But I think the big thing was, we're not making the plays in the passing game you got to make to win a game like that. And when you evaluate and you look at that game in particular, as it relates to the passing game, Tiffin made more big plays in the passing game than we did. We had some opportunities, we didn't make them, and I think that was the difference in the game. You know, you've got to still be able to throw it. You can't just run the football, and we've got to get better at making those big plays. And
I know obviously a part of that due to the fact that your expected top three wide receivers coming into this season unable to play this past Saturday due to injury, but as a coach will always tell you, then the other guys who are coming into the game have to step up.
They do, and we just have to keep working and practicing hard and improving their skills and their ability to make those big plays. We looked at the video and there were 7 opportunities, I thought, to make a play in the passing game that would have either resulted in a score or an impact explosive type of play, and we made one of them. That was the Andrew Dillon catch on the touchdown, which was a great catch. So it's a matter of developing that relationship and that trust and faith in that connection between quarterback and receiver. And when you've got a quarterback playing early and you've got receivers that don't have a lot of experience, they haven't yet developed that part of the passing game. And that's what we're working real hard in practice to develop. And it takes time. And I know this. Our guys are working. They wanted to make those plays. It's not a lack of desire or concentration or effort. It's just that they didn't make them at that particular time. So we got to work, get better, and hopefully be in a better situation to make them.
And this is a situation, too, where in a game like that, I think sometimes mistakes that might be considered minor get magnified. Tiffin had more penalties than you did, but SVSU sure had more penalties than I know you would have liked. You missed 2 field goals. There were a lot of other things that all add up to winding up in a game that you lose by 2 scores.
Exactly. I mean, we could talk about the positive things that happened, but there are way too many negative things to win the game. You mentioned the penalties. The penalties were at key times. The penalties happened in the red zone. And that can't happen. The one where we missed a field goal, it went from being a potentially 26-yard field goal to a 31-yard field goal. Now that's not a big amount, 5 yards, but it might have played into things. Later in the fourth quarter, we've got the ball hopefully on the 12-yard line or somewhere in that range, and we have a block below the waist that puts the ball back on the 30, and we're not able to even convert that opportunity into points. So some key penalties. I'm proud of the fact that we haven't turned the ball over, we didn't turn the ball over. We created a turnover in the red zone, which got us the second score. But you're right, we made some mistakes that were in inopportune times, inopportune places on the field, and it resulted in us not being able to convert into points.
The other thing was that Tiffin, late in the game, when they needed to run the football to run out the clock, they were able to do that. So that's another area I'm sure that's getting some extra attention this week.
Exactly, and we talked about that as a coaching staff, and that was that was the one area of the game where you just felt like I don't want to say our guys gave up, but I think Tiffin got the upper hand. They could feel it. They were up 11. And they used that momentum and got a little bit more physical at that point in the game than we were.
How do you go about now with your team making sure they have the psyche necessary to make this long road trip and continue to give the focus that they need during practice this week, because there's still a lot of season ahead of you?
I think the two things that that we talked about after the game, and then I saw the results of those talks this morning in practice, was the ability to understand what you need to do to get better. And, you can talk all you want about getting better, we got to get better, but are you doing the things that it takes to get better? And I think our guys have recognized that there's some areas they need to work on, and it's only going to get better if they practice hard and practice those things. And then I think with that comes the confidence to go on the road and play in a big game like this game coming up. So I think the most important thing at this point is the understanding of what we need to do to get better, executing that in practice, and then building that confidence for Saturday.
You've been a head coach for a number of years. Before you came to SVSU, I think it's fair to say now, at 2 games in, also something that perhaps is going on is people probably got spoiled a little bit by what SVSU had to work with in recent seasons, because you really had a wealth of talent, particularly in the passing game.
That's a great point. And when a great passing game revolves around, and I talked about it, that connection between quarterback and receivers. And we were not only fortunate to have some really good players in those spots, but guys that had been with each other for 3 and 4 years. And when you can develop that timing and that rhythm and that connection and understanding of, against this coverage, I'm going to make this route a little bit different, or I'm going to throw the ball a little bit different, that trust that you develop in the passing game takes time. And we're redeveloping that with this group. We've got some talented people, but it's in the developmental stages still. And we were counting on the running game early to be able to have some time to develop the passing game. But we've got to start really moving forward a little bit more aggressively, I think, with the passing game at this point. But I made that point to our quarterback and receivers today. It's a matter of getting that trust and that faith and that timing, and it only comes with repetitions. Having some guys injured and out of the mix, hurts a little bit because they don't get the chance to develop. When those guys come back from injury, it's still going to be, a lack of preparation a little bit in the passing game. So we're going to have to work really hard, get a lot of reps in practice, start developing that relationship, that timing, that rhythm.
That's one of the things that SVSU will be working on in practice this week. A little bit later on, we'll talk to Jim Collins and find out what his team needs to do to be successful on the road against a Michigan Tech team that's off to a 2-0 start. That's still ahead, but when we come back, we'll be joined by SVSU running backs coach Andre Griffin. That's all ahead on this edition of SVSU Red Alert.
This week, Spring Hill Suites Female Athlete of the Week is Claire Spleth. Spleth, a sophomore on the SVSU women's soccer team, carried her stellar play into the second week of the season. Spleth followed up her opening weekend of not allowing a goal by making 12 saves against Ferris State on Sunday. She is still unbeaten as the Cardinals are 2-0-1. The sophomore currently has a .955 save percentage and 21 saves on the young season. After finishing the week 0-0-1, the Cards return to action this weekend with a match on Friday at Malone University at 2 p.m. before making their home debut against rival Northwood University on Sunday at noon at Braddock Field. Claire Spleth, your Spring Hill Suites Female Athlete of the Week.
Welcome back to SVSU Red Alert. I'm JJ Boehm, joined by SVSU running backs coach Andre Griffin. And Andre, somewhat similar for the running back standpoint that it is to the rest of the SVSU team this year. You've got some guys that are familiar to you, but haven't really been asked to step up in the roles that they're being expected to this year. But then also some new guys being introduced to the program or introduced to the position.
Yes, we have Lonte Gardner, who was a receiver. So it was his first time playing running back since high school. He actually had 101 yards last week. He's doing a pretty good job for us, but he got to continue to get better. David Ney played for us last year. He was a freshman. He was a third guy, played a little bit, but once again, he's getting his first true touches in a real life situation and when it's important. And then we have one transfer that unfortunately got hurt early on, and Ben Brown also came back, and he's doing a pretty good job for us, but he has to get reps too because he hasn't played in 3 or 4 years.
So you've got all those guys back there getting some opportunities now to play, as you said. A lot of different experiences in terms of what they bring to that running back position, and a position that this year probably is more important than it might have been in previous seasons, because when you have the passing attack that SVSU had in recent years with John Jennings at the helm and then a Jeff Janis, a Michael Albrecht, a Mark Thrash, who are all 3 and 4 year starters, now you've got a running back crew that you know is going to be counted on week in and week out.
Definitely. We have Lontae Garner, like I mentioned before, he was a receiver, so we're doing what we call a pony package, which is 2 running backs, and actually Lontae is going to some receivers. He runs some jets and stuff like that. But doing a good job. We just got to keep working with those guys, and we got a bigger back that you guys, for me, is a little different. We had 245-pound Ben Brown, and once he gets going, I think he's going to do a great job for us also.
How hard is it for someone to be out of competitive football for that long? Those of us around the program, we got to see him in spring games and some other things, but he hadn't played a competitive football game, as you said, in more than 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. Just getting hit. Getting hit, delivering hits is always the key. So getting over that hump is very key for Ben Brown and for the other guys, because you got to realize those guys, I call them boxers. You got to be a boxer to be a running back, going through the gauntlet. You're going through the front line, going through the second level, and going through the third level. Not too many positions do that, but running backs have to do that, and we have to train that way.
And I know that you've had some big plays from the running position so far in terms of Lontae Gardner had, I think, a 47-yard run in this past Saturday's defeat to Tiffin. So you've been able to get some big plays out of the running game, but I know you're looking for even more.
Definitely looking for some more. Most of our big plays have been outside. I want to get going on the inside with the power and the reads, the 14 inside zones. If we can get that going, I think we'll be a great job. We'll break tackles. We got to do a better job breaking tackles, delivering the blow. When we're in the open, we're good, but we have to deliver the blow and make somebody miss in the open field.
And how do you work with this crew as well to understand what you have in terms of Keith Moore and what he brings to the running game, both designed and sometimes what he has to do when he's scrambling outside of the pocket?
Well, Keith Moore is an excellent athlete, as you guys seen for the first 2 weeks. I always tell my guys on read, we always expect the ball, but just be aware that he might pull the ball, and when we don't get the ball, we have to transition into blocking. If we don't get tackled or anything like that, we want to transition and lead Keith Moore into the end zone, which we're doing a pretty good job of it so far.
There was one play I know in that game when it was a short yardage situation, basically ran almost like a power quarterback draw where you did have a lead blocker for Keith. And as you said, you've got to do whatever the situation calls for. And you've got an interesting mix in terms of each one of those guys brings something a little bit different to the table in terms of their physical gifts.
Definitely. For that play you're talking about, it was a quarterback power, and we put Ben Brown in, who is our bigger back, and he's an excellent blocker as well. He got great hands. He can bring a lot to the table, and he's very smart. He knows his area with A, B, C gap. He knows where to hit, and he actually had a cut block on that one, and he got the first down, so that was good to see.
And so he's your big back. David Ney is kind of in between from the standpoint. Yep. He's Lontae Gardner is kind of your smaller, shiftier back, but was able to, as you said, show some of that speed. He's 5'9", about 180. David Ney's in between those two guys.
Right.
So you do have some different things in terms of what they bring physically.
Yes, David Ney is actually right in between. You said that perfectly, JJ. He's actually pretty fast. He's our kick returner, as you guys know. So he runs about a 4.5, 4.6, but he's also a 400-pound bencher and a 500-pound squatter. So once he gets going, he can do both. And for him, we just got to keep working with him. Lontae Gardner, speed is power. You guys heard me say that term. As long as he's small, it doesn't matter if he runs as hard as he can, as fast as he can. He'll be able to bring some power to this table too.
So I know you're getting all those guys ready for Michigan Tech, because this is a team that likes to crowd the box and make it very difficult to run the football.
Yes, definitely. In the past few years, we've had a great job. If you look back on our film, we was watching that the other day. Last year, we had 300 yards rushing, and what we did, we just attacked those guys before they could attack us, and that's what we have to bring the mentality to the younger guys, and they have to see that tape and see that we can do it. And they got to build confidence within themselves and have a good week.
Well, hopefully they have a good week, and hopefully the Cardinals can bounce back this week against Michigan Tech. Coach Griffin, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it, JJ.
And when we come back, I'll be rejoined by SVSU head coach Jim Collins. That's next on SVSU Red Alert.
This week's Spring Hill Suites Male Athlete of the Week is Ryan Thomas. Thomas, a junior on the SVSU men's golf team, finished second as an individual at the Al Watrous Intercollegiate Tournament this past weekend. Thomas shot an opening round 1 under 71 and then followed that up with an even par 72 on Sunday. He finished one stroke behind the individual champion. The Cardinals finished fourth place as a team in the season opening tournament and will return to action at the GLIAC North tournament this weekend. The tournament will be played at the Hawks Head Golf Links in South Haven, Michigan. Ryan Thomas, your Spring Hill Suites Male Athlete of the Week.
Welcome back to SVSU Red Alert. I'm JJ Boehm, rejoined by SVSU head football coach Jim Collins. And there's never a good time for a loss. You never want to start 0-2 at home. But I think now, particularly an important week for your ball club from the standpoint of you've got to get them ready for the longest road trip you can make in this conference, going up to Michigan Tech and making sure they're ready to play a Michigan Tech team that won their first 2 games on the road.
Well, Michigan Tech's always been a strong opponent. And one of the things that you know, in the past years, we've had to be at our best when we've gone up there. And I think we've played well the last couple of times we've gone up there. But it's taken a great effort. It's taken great execution. And we've got to expect the same out of our team in order to have the opportunity to win the football game and earn that chance to win the football game. So, you know, I think our mindset, as we talked about in the previous segment, is right. It's a get better, focus on what's important, the little things that are going to help be a better football team and be a better football player and be better football coaches. But putting it into action at Tech is going to require great focus and concentration and intensity.
And this is a Michigan Tech team that always presents a number of unique challenges. They've always got a big physical offensive line, but the other thing is they probably consistently put in more trick plays than anybody else. That certainly helped SVSU last year from the standpoint they went with an end around that then they threw the ball downfield. SVSU was able to intercept that at a key point in the game. So I know that's something that you've got to be ready for as well on defense, is be prepared for those type of trick plays.
Exactly, and they've made a living out of screens and reverses and trick plays, and they do a good job of taking away your aggressiveness. So you've got to be patient. You've got to be very sound and disciplined. So we're going to work all week on those things. But the other thing they have is they got a good running back, good offensive line, as you mentioned, and a good quarterback. Tyler Scarlett's has had a great career. He's a senior now. He's probably going to break every Michigan Tech record, and he's closing in on Jennings' all-time record in the GLIAC. So, you know, we've got our hands filled with their offense, and then defensively, you know, their MO has always been aggressive attack, big guys up front, strong, and they've always been really solid on defense as well.
So that's obviously a challenge, too, from the standpoint that when you've got, a defense that's trying to still find its identity under a new coordinator, you've got an offense trying to find its identity with so many new personnel. You need both of those things to come together and get better play on special teams, I would think, all 3 phases to be successful on the road.
And that's the situation we're in right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, JJ. We need to get better at everything. And, you know, there's a lot of teams out there in the same boat that we are. They're working hard. They've got inexperience that's trying to gain more experience. We got 2 games under our belt now, and some of the mistakes we're making, some of the breakdowns have to be eliminated because 2 weeks is enough to get your experience to the point where you can make those corrections, understand what corrections need to be made, and go forward and never make them again. So, you know, I like I said, I think our guys responded well in our meetings and our practices this morning, and you know, it's a work attitude, and it's also a focused attitude. So we got to keep that going and focus on those things and keep getting better.
Hopefully the Cardinals can get better and hopefully turn some of these things around on the scoreboard. Coach Collins, good luck against Michigan Tech.
Thanks, JJ.
That's SVSU head coach Jim Collins. I'm JJ Boehm. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of SVSU Red Alert.